This week on Hometown Ghost Stories, Shiloh National Military Park, located in Tennessee, was the site of one of the Civil War's bloodiest battles in April of 1862, with over 23,000 casualties. Today, it's a serene historic site, but many say it's haunted by echoes of its violent past. Hundreds have experienced some sort of paranormal phenomena at the park. This is Hometown Ghost Stories, the lost souls of Shiloh, Tennessee.
Hometown Ghost Stories contains serious and often distressing events and is not intended for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
April 6th, 2013, Shiloh, Tennessee. 1 week into my road trip from Starkville, Mississippi to Princeton, Kentucky, I stopped in Shiloh, Tennessee. There was a campground just across Highway 22 from the Shiloh Military Park. It was early April, and the camping season hadn't kicked off yet, so I had the whole campground to myself. Technically, I was trespassing, but I didn't think anyone would notice, since I picked a spot deep in the woods that wasn't visible from the street. At around midnight, I kicked dirt onto my campfire, extinguishing the flames, and opened the tent fly to get some sleep. Unfortunately, sleep didn't come easy. I tossed and turned for what had to be about 2 hours before I began to doze in and out of a sort of half-sleep. The problem was that it was too quiet. I wasn't terribly far from the highway, but it was probably 2 in the morning and nobody was on the road. There was no breeze, no crickets, no white noise. It was borderline maddening. But eventually fatigue took over and I began to drift off. That is, until I was startled by the sound of footsteps crunching on dry leaves just outside my tent. I shot up in my sleeping bag, fearing I'd been caught trespassing by the owner of the campground or possibly a cop. I waited for a voice to call me out, but it didn't come. The deafening silence had returned. It occurred to me to call out myself, but my heart was caught in my throat, so I couldn't find my voice. I sat and waited for I didn't know what, possibly the sound of more footsteps, hopefully walking away, but nothing came. I wondered if someone was just standing outside my tent in complete silence, and that thought freaked me out. The idea of sleeping at this point was completely out the window, so I decided I would investigate. I felt around for my backpack, unzipped it, and dug out my flashlight. There was no moon that night, so I would need it in the pitch darkness. I began to brace myself for whatever was waiting for me outside the tent. I was certain someone was standing out there. The sound of the leaves being crushed under the heavy footsteps was so undeniably distinct. The fact that the footsteps had stopped just outside the tent and no voice followed suggested that it wasn't an authority figure, which left only nefarious possibilities as far as I knew at the time. So I dug back into my backpack and retrieved my hunting knife. After a moment of gathering my nerves, I slowly unzipped the tent door and clicked on my flashlight. There was nothing in front of the tent, so I quickly stepped out and scanned the light to the left side of the tent where I had heard the footsteps. Nothing. I walked around the back of the tent and again confirmed nobody was there. I continued circling the tent until I reached the front again. There was no one out there. I pointed the light into the woods surrounding the tent, and there wasn't a person in sight anywhere. No person, no animals, nothing. That's when I noticed that not only was there no person outside the tent, there were also no leaves on the ground, which it hadn't occurred to me until now that it was April and leaves wouldn't begin to fall from the trees for another 6 months. So what had I heard? Was it my tired mind playing tricks on me? I knew it wasn't. The sound was too distinct. It wasn't until years later that I learned that Shiloh National Park was haunted, and the sound I heard that night could have been the spirit of one of the Confederate soldiers who died there on April 6, 1862, 151 years to the day before I set up camp. I'm Dave Wilkins, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, Shiloh, Tennessee.
1862. For months, Yankee troops had been working their way up the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. Kentucky was firmly in Union hands, and the Union Army controlled most of Tennessee, including the capital at Nashville. General Ulysses S. Grant continued to rack up victories at Fort Henry and Donelson in February, forcing Confederate General Albert Sidney Johnston to collect the scattered rebel forces at Corinth, Mississippi. General Grant brought his army of 42,000 to rendezvous with General Don Carlos Buell and his 20,000 troops. Grant had set his eyes on Corinth, which had a vital rail center near the Tennessee border. If he was successful, this would give the Union control of the region. But 20 miles away, Johnston lurked at Corinth with his 45,000 soldiers. Johnston knew he had to strike before Grant and Buell were able to combine forces. On April 3, 1862, he advanced, but both Johnston's troops and Buell's troops were slowed by rough weather, creating muddy roads. Early on April 6th, a Yankee patrol spotted the Confederates just a mile from the main Union Army. Johnston immediately attacked, driving the surprised Union soldiers back near Shiloh Church in southwestern Tennessee. As the battle raged on, the Confederates had the upper hand, managing to batter the Union troops, driving them back towards Pittsburgh Landing and threatening to trap them against the Tennessee River. Many of the troops on both sides were inexperienced, this being their first battle. The odds that the Confederates would come out victorious diminished the longer that the fight went on. They knew that General Buell's army would be arriving soon, which would change the course of the battle. All Grant had to do was shore up the Union line and wait for reinforcements. Johnston rode forward to direct the Confederate attack when he got struck by a bullet in the leg. This severed an artery, causing him to quickly bleed to death. He would end up being the highest-ranking general on either side killed during the war. General Pierre G.T. Beauregard took over control and halted the advance at nightfall. Once Buell's vanguard arrived, Grant had the advantage in terms of troop numbers and launched a counterattack on April 7th. The Confederates slowly retreated, but inflicted heavy casualties along the way. By nightfall, the Confederates had been driven back to Shiloh Church, recapturing grisly, blood-soaked reminders of the previous day's battles, such as the Hornet's Nest, the Bloody Pond, and Peach Orchard. Eventually, the Confederates, battered and injured, made their way back to Corinth, handing Ulysses S. Grant and the Union a major victory. But the cost of this victory was extremely high. Roughly 62,000 of Grant and Buell's troops were either killed, wounded, missing, or captured. The Confederates suffered over 10,000 casualties out of the 45,000 that engaged. With over 23,000 combined deaths, the casualty figures were higher than many of the war's key battles up to that date, including Wilson's Creek, First Battle of Bolt's Run, and Pea Ridge. The battle was a brutal reminder to everyone on both sides that the war was going to be long, costly, and bloody. It's believed by paranormal enthusiasts that the sites of great tragedy or loss of life tend to draw lots of spiritual energy and can even attract the attention of malevolent entities. This is probably why there's so many reports of paranormal activity at battlefields all across the world. In the United States, many of the sites where Civil War battles took place are no different. At Shiloh, there seem to be endless stories from hundreds of visitors reporting supernatural activity at the park, from the sounds of drums to gunshots, cannon fire, hoofbeats, the smell of gunpowder, to sightings of shadow figures and full-bodied apparitions. It's pretty clear that something is going on here. The history of the park and reported hauntings date back even further than the Civil War. Several Native American burial mounds can be found at the park. Visitors have reported sightings of orbs around these mounds and have even heard the sounds of tribal drumming and singing coming from the woods. The most common odd occurrence near these burial mounds are the feelings of freezing cold blasts of air that have been experienced on hot summer days. In the colder seasons, it seems to be the opposite, hot spots and warm breezes during lower temperature days. The Bloody Pond is one location at the park where people understandably get a little uneasy, and many visitors have experienced a wide range of paranormal phenomena. Investigators have captured EVPs and plenty of intelligent responses on various devices. But even visitors who come to the Bloody Pond without equipment experience hauntings at an alarming rate. The most common reports are people witnessing the water turn blood red. The history behind the pond makes these experiences even more chilling. The Bloody Pond got its name for a reason. Some accounts say that Confederate bodies were dumped into the pond, causing the water to turn blood red. Other reports claim that soldiers used the pond to clean their wounds, which would also turn the pond red. But in reality, both could be true at the same time. Either way, the pond earned its name after the battle, and to this day, visitors still claim that the water will have a reddish hue, and some say that they witness the color change right in front of their eyes as they approach. Rangers and skeptics have a more scientific explanation. They dismiss this as a natural occurrence, as heat-driven algae blooms at the hotter parts of the year, which could make the water appear to change color. Shiloh was named after a small church located at the park. A replica of this church now stands in its place, and many believe that the one-room cabin could be haunted. Visitors to the building report being touched and feel as though they are constantly being watched. Photos have captured what appears to be apparitions inside the church. These appear as a fog or a white mist. This isn't the only building at the park that's believed to be haunted. At the Rangers' housing area, many claim to witness windows and doors opening and closing on their own, and those strange hot and cold drafts, similar to those experienced at the burial mounds, are also experienced here. Many find these occurrences even more strange, since they are often encountered in closed rooms where there is no natural explanation for a sudden gust of cold or hot air rushing past them. The cabin near Peach Orchard is another haunted building at the park. The cabin is often photographed by visitors, and some claim to have captured what appears to be the image of a little boy with a drum. At least one visitor claims to have captured the boy's voice on recorder, and he said that his name was Jack. When they asked how old he was, the same voice told him that he was 9 years old. There are records of an 11-year-old Shiloh drummer named Johnny Clem, but Johnny survived the battle. We can't rule out that this is the same boy, despite the fact that he didn't die in the battle. But it's also possible that there was another unknown younger boy named Jack who maybe died in the battle. Regardless if it's Johnny or the spirit of another unfortunate soul, there have been reported sightings of a little boy wearing gray and white clothes. His spirit will climb down the ladder in the cabin and then run off into the woods. Some theorize that this could be a residual haunting of a boy who lived in the cabin, and maybe he ran off into the woods, terrified of the battle that he was witnessing. There are reports of another ghostly figure who appears and disappears at random places around the cabin. Witnesses claim that he always seems to be wandering slowly, almost as if he's confused, exhausted, or possibly wounded. As people get closer, he disappears, only to reappear somewhere else a short time later. Cherry Mansion was built around 1829 as a wedding gift for David Robinson's daughter Sarah and her husband William H. Cherry. The home wasn't completed until around the time of Robinson's death in 1849, and ownership was transferred to Cherry in 1855. During the Civil War, Cherry was a Union sympathizer. During and after the Battle of Shiloh, his house served as a headquarters for the Union Army generals Ulysses S. Grant, C.F. Smith, Don Buell, and W.H.L. Wallace. On April 6, 1862, General Grant and his staff sat down for breakfast when they heard a distant cannon fire, which indicated that the battle had begun. They boarded a steamboat at the landing near the house and traveled to Shiloh. After being mortally wounded in battle, Generals Smith and Wallace were taken back to the house, where they died. Wallace's wife said that she actually had a premonition of his death and rushed to Tennessee, hoping that she was wrong. She arrived during the battle and was with him when he passed away a few days later at the house. To this day, some claim to see bloody footprints which appear on the steps outside. Others have reported witnessing ghostly figures in Union uniforms in the upstairs windows, and they claim to hear disembodied footsteps and other unexplained noises. In 1976, 4 young men claimed to witness a man in a linen suit and gray beard walk up to the historical marker on the grounds. It looked as though he was reading the sign, and then he vanished before their eyes. I'm Jesse Wilkins, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, Shiloh National Military Park, Shiloh, Tennessee. What's going on, folks? Welcome into Hometown Ghost Stories, episode number 146. I'm Jesse Wilkins. I'm joined by Rob Coakley. Hello, Rob.
Rob is muted.
Rob is muted. That's the way we like him.
Hello,
Rob.
Hi, I'm here.
We're also joined by Dave. Hi, Dave.
Hi. Thank you for usurping my Ghosts of the Civil War series that I was doing.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Well, it was demanded. So our RIP of the week is Brennan B. and his entire family. I don't know. I just threw them in there. Figured, he has a family. Yeah, why not? Sure. But it turns out if you request an episode for 10 weeks in a row, at least on Patreon, that I'll just cover it. So it was a great idea.
Let you know that we will do anything for money. Pay us and we will do anything.
I'm glad he brought it up, though, because while I'm familiar with a lot of the Civil War battles, I wasn't really familiar with the hauntings at Shiloh. And it's something that there isn't a ton of content online. I mean, like, there's plenty of websites that talk about the hauntings there, but I couldn't really find too many investigations. I don't think there are a lot of investigations because this park closes after dark. So you could go there and do some daytime investigation stuff. But as for like nighttime investigations, which are obviously more popular, it's tough to do it here. And you don't want to trespass. Trespassing, we don't advise.
No, definitely don't want to trespass. Try to get permission if you wanted to do it at night, but daytime might. It's one of those situations where daytime is probably the right time to do it, but you just have so much outside noise that it's so hard to do. You're already outside. You already have nature. Now you're at a national park where there's people running around, reenactments happening. Be a little difficult to do.
Yeah, a lot of stuff like that going on. I feel like if I were to investigate the pond, I would want to do it in the day because I would want to see if the color changes. Now there's the scientific explanation seems to be the explanation there, but some of the photos, now I don't know if those pictures are photoshopped at all, that looked straight up like a pond full of blood. So I didn't doctor any of those photos. I don't know if other people have online, but those are searchable photos if you Google the bloody pond, and it does look very, very, very red at times. Sometimes it looks pretty normal. Looks like a little muddy pond, but it sometimes does turn that blood red. So Brennan says those were not photoshopped. So that is that's crazy. Now you do have that algae that blooms or whatever. So I guess there's a reason that you could do it. But I did include a photo of that as well while that algae was blooming, and it looked a little bit different. It looked kind of like flowers on top, but I'm just a nuclear physicist. I'm not an actual scientist. So we'll hop into that in a little bit. But I want to thank everyone who's hanging out in live chat. Brenda C. came in with 50 Hometown Ghost Stories, gifted memberships on YouTube. Then Tess backed it up with another 50. Kitten Clown Dozer came in with 5. And happy resub day to Brenda C. and Shayna D. So thank you so much for all those gifteds. If you got one, make sure you say thank you. It looks like the chat's a little bugged right now where it's not really saying who got gifted subs, but 100 of them are out there. Yeah. And or 105 actually. So thank you to everybody who did that. And thanks again to Brennan for the suggestion and sent in a few photos. I actually used a few of the photos in there. Forgot to credit you, but I'll do that when I upload the show. So we'll make that happen, but awesome work.
In the meantime, if you are a member of our Patreon, we do have exclusive content on there as well. And it is the holiday season, and you can go and buy some Hometown Ghost Stories merch. Please, we need to feed our families. So go buy these hoodies and hats, get them out of Dave's house so that we can order more. Every time you order stuff and we have to reorder, we order double. And our goal for me and Jesse anyways is to fill Dave's entire house with merch so that he has to live outside in a tent.
Again. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, so Shiloh National Military Park. This is a ton of fun to look into. I love covering, obviously, any location's fun with the history, but anytime we can talk about wars, that seems to always pull my attention. It seems that if I'm not reading some sort of a spooky book, I'm reading something mostly on World War II or the Civil War and stuff. So it's always fun to dive into these kind of stories. And it's just so shocking. Every time we cover something that has a Civil War battle, it's crazy how fast these battles were. A lot of them were just an afternoon. This one was 2 days. And just the sheer number of deaths in these battles is just so jarring. I mean, you're talking about over 20,000 deaths in just this 48-hour period or however long it was, which is a lot. So if you believe in these sorts of things, then that is a perfect recipe for why a location like this would absolutely
20,000 casualties, not deaths.
Deaths.
No.
Yes.
Nope.
Believe me, I researched it.
Shiloh?
Shiloh, over 20,000
Yeah.
deaths.
No.
10,000.
No. Casualties. You had 1,754 dead on the Union side, and you had 1,728 dead on the Confederate side.
10,000 dead on the Confederate side. Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
You are wrong.
Okay.
You're talking about casualties. You had 1,754 dead of Union soldiers, 8,404 wounded, and 2,885 missing or captured. And then the Confederate, you had.
I'm gonna have to go back and edit my numbers there. The numbers 10, that I got off, which were from, what was it? It was a .gov.
These are the wrong.
Had like the casualties where like we were talking about wounded. Everything had things over 60,000 people wounded.
I wonder if that was that would put it above Gettysburg, which Gettysburg is the
there's no way it was above Gettysburg. Okay.
I wonder if they were talking about casual or deaths in the war up to that point, maybe.
Maybe I just got the numbers confused. Either way, it's going to take some editing. Casualties and significance. The cost of the victory were high. More than 13,000 of Buell's and approximately 62,000 troops were killed, wounded, captured, missing. This is from history.com. So get your shit together, history.com. That's where I pulled the numbers from. More than 23,000 combined casualties. Oh, it says combined casualties.
Yeah,
far greater than. But it says approximately 60 in Buell's, approximately 62,000 were killed, wounded, captured, missing. 45,000. Okay, so it's conflating.
Talking about
casualties and deaths. Okay. Well. I got everything wrong. Anyways, it was the bloodiest battle up until that point. And I think it would end up being the second bloodiest in the entire war, if I'm not wrong. It might just be
the sixth.
Okay,
but the and those comparisons are they vary too, depending on what source you're looking at. But I've seen it ranked 6th or 7th. But it was a brutal one actually. I also was reading, and don't quote me on this because I don't know how true this is because I can't reference it at the moment, but the Battle of Shiloh, up until this point in American history, had more casualties than every other battle fought on American soil combined.
I mean, that's a lot. Because with the entire American Revolution, the War of 1812.
Yep, the Mexican-American War.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Sorry for being distracted. I'm trying to fix my blurry camera and I keep making it worse.
But we've talked about this before, and the reason that the Civil War battles were so much bloodier and so much more violent than other battles up to this point was they kept the traditional style of fighting where two armies would just march and take turns shooting at each other, but they had super advanced weapons in comparison to past wars. So it's, it would be like if the, two armies today got together with all their automatic weapons and started shooting at each other like that, you'd have, millions of deaths.
Everyone would just
standing in ranks, throwing grenades and not moving. Yeah, it would go real well.
Yep. And then there's the grape shot and the canister shot and people just getting liquefied and stuff like that. That's why those missing numbers are so harrowing, because, it wasn't all just people deserting. A lot of it was people just getting absolutely liquefied by the canister shot. And we talk about this every time we cover a Civil War battle, so it's becoming redundant at this point, but I think it's worthy of mention.
Yeah, Jesse's going to get liquefied in the comments later, so that's going to be fun.
I'm just going to fix all of it.
But yeah, there were some pretty interesting details with this Battle of Shiloh too. Some really dark and disturbing images that you can imagine. So in between the battles, I guess there was this herd of pigs that would just roam onto the battlefield and eat the corpses of the fallen soldiers. And it really disturbed the people who were still alive and scarred them. It was
the farmers were pissed too. I was listening to this documentary about it, and they're like the farmers were just so upset because they couldn't keep control of their pigs because the pigs just kept going out there and feasting. It's a really gory and tragic thing that happened.
Yeah, that must have been truly shocking to see. Not that the battle itself wasn't shocking enough, but to see something like that sounds particularly disturbing.
It's too nice of a name to have this big of a battle. Like Shiloh, it's just too nice of a name. It's like
Shiloh, Peach Orchard. It all sounds so pleasant.
yeah, Shiloh's like the kid that you just like kind of, you bully in school for a little bit
Yeah.
till he
It's
grows
not-
up and makes more money than you.
Yeah. It's
That's
not like you're like Antietam sounds like a battlefield.
Yeah,
right?
Antietam sounds like Gettysburg.
Gettysburg. Yeah.
Sounds like a battlefield. Shiloh
Hmm.
sounds like a 95-pound, 5'3" kid that can't make the basketball team.
Yep. That's an interesting observation.
Yeah, so we dove into it. I mean, we talked about the battle, and it was, in terms of other wars and battles, it was relatively quick, but it was one where it looked like the Confederates were going to win. It was another one where the Confederates were outperforming the Union, and then in true like Game of Thrones style, they just had to hold the line basically until reinforcements showed up, and then they would have the upper hand. So the longer that the battle went, the more bleak it was looking for the Confederates. They ended up getting backed up all the way towards like the Tennessee River, and they're they ended up at that little church actually, which they ended up naming Shiloh after. So it was the Shiloh Church, and then it became the Shiloh Battlefield, and then I guess they went ahead and just named the whole town after it. But that tiny little church, now I believe the one that stands there today is a replica of the original church, but we showed some images of it and some videos of it. It's like just a little one room, looks like a log cabin basically, and that was where the Confederate troops ended up at, and now it is also said to be haunted. And
Well, before we pull off the battle stuff first, Micah brings up a pretty good point where he says Johnston's loss was massive, and he's referring to Albert Sidney Johnston, the Confederate general there. And there are a lot of historians who theorize that if Albert Johnston wasn't killed in this battle, then the Confederates probably would have won the war, and that was a massive turning point in the in this battle for this war.
it certainly was. Yeah, I think he ended up being the highest ranking official who died on either side during the entire war, not even just up until that point.
Yep.
So that was big.
There was, Stonewall Jackson would have been possibly the other one, but I do think that Sidney Johnston outranked Stonewall. But there was a couple of like big name people in this battle that went on to be sort of legendary or infamous, like Nathan Bedford Forrest. This guy was pretty interesting. He was a bad guy, and he was on the Confederate side. He was known as the Wizard of the Saddle, and he commanded the rear guard for the Confederate Army. And at one point, towards the end of the battle, he charged through the Union skirmish line, not realizing that the rest of his men had stopped their charge. So he was literally just charging the skirmish by himself.
Oh dear,
alone. And
luckily he was a wizard.
He emptied both of his revolvers into the surging Union troops, and then when he ran out of ammo, he pulled his sword out and started hacking. And then he ended up taking a bullet to the pelvis, and the bullet lodged in his spine. So that's the point where he's like, all right, this is enough. So he turns the horse around and he grabs one of the Union soldiers up off the ground and throws him on the back of his horse facing backwards, and is riding away with this Union soldier on the back of his horse. So
it's like a body shield?
Yeah, so that the Union soldiers wouldn't shoot him, and he successfully got away. And which is like crazy to think about, because that just sounds like something you'd see in a movie that you'd be like, this is unrealistic. This is not something that would ever happen, but it did happen.
That's got to take a lot of strength to grab the dude and lift him up. I would assume with one arm, right?
Yeah, right.
Lift him up and just plop him on the back of the horse. Oh man, that's crazy.
There's probably the Shiloh guy that Rob was talking about earlier, 5'3",
yeah,
95 pounds.
one of these poor little drummer boys.
But he survived the gunshot and went on. He's a piece of shit. He went on to be the first Grand Wizard of the KKK, and that's because his nickname was the Wizard of the Saddle.
Wizard.
That's why that's how they coined the term Grand Wizard.
It's a bad nickname. I would never, like, I know it's a different time, but Wizard of the Saddle, no thanks. Bad nickname.
Yeah, I was gonna make a bunch of Harry Potter jokes, but now I'll just go away from making jokes about this guy. No bueno. Yeah. Not a good one. No. Damn.
You have more famous people from this battle?
No.
You said there was multiple. So
this kid Johnny Clem, I guess, was actually a little bit more of a celebrity than I thought he was. I thought he was just someone that they found in the books and was like, okay, yes, there was actually a 11-year-old drummer named Johnny Clem. and he actually ended up surviving the battle. And we talked about him a little bit in the episode, but he was the drummer. And there's some images that I put up there, like some drawings of him, like he's got the drum on his back and he's shooting at a soldier and everything. So it looks like I don't know if he participated in the battle, taking, using weapons and everything, but I mean, if so, then man, imagine going into battle and then getting shot by an 11-year-old. That's rough.
That would suck.
Yep.
I mean, I guess it would suck to get shot by.
I think it would suck no matter what age the person was you got shot by. But what do we do in bringing 11-year-olds into a battle?
Yeah, not good practice. But I guess, it would be insult to injury, right? Doesn't just hurt you physically, it hurts your pride if an 11-year-old takes you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, gun's bigger than he is. That's rough. But I saw a whole bunch of stuff on him. I think there might have been a movie made about him and everything. Like it looks like he was a little bit of a celebrity, but didn't die in the battle. Now people do encounter his ghost at the cabin, I think by the peach orchard, and they've encountered the soul of a little boy here. Now they believe it could either be him, which you can't really rule it out. Again, he didn't die in the battle, but that doesn't mean that his ghost wouldn't go back to haunt that battlefield. That's obviously one of the bigger events in his life, something that you're never going to forget. So could be back there haunting, but they think maybe it was another one. Now there were thousands and thousands of soldiers of all ages. I mean, like there was a whole lot of these, like a massive percentage of them. This was their first time ever seeing a battle. So it was very inexperienced on both sides, which might be another reason why the death toll was so high. And there's just, you have inexperienced troops out there going to battle for the first time. So just
an 11-year-old he could live to 90. This has to be like a top 5 life event for him. Like not saying like in a good way, but like things that you remember to the point you brought up.
Oh yeah, you don't forget this.
You don't forget this. There's a ton of energy. It's a memory. I would assume if we're doing residual hauntings, this would definitely be amongst the places that he would like your energy would transfer to, right? Is like you would as an 11-year, I mean, as anyone seeing this, but God, an 11-year-old, terrifying,
right.
Terrible.
Now people have seen the ghost of a little boy in this area near the peach orchard, but there's also, it seems to be like they're seeing multiple. Now we're basing the idea that this ghost name is Jack off of literally one communication. I think it was a captured EVP where someone asked what his name was and the recording came back. I'm pretty sure it was voice recorder. I don't think it was Spirit Box, but it came back and said that he was Jack. That was his name. And then it came back later and said that he was 9 years old.
You also just got his flag because you said jack off, but continue.
And then, I mean, it could be Johnny. I mean, Johnny, Jack, those names can go hand in hand, but I mean, he wasn't 9, he was 11 at the time of the battle. I think it's probably just another drummer boy that they had. He wasn't the only one. It's quite possible that there was a 9-year-old named Jack that probably died in the battle.
Jack is short for John.
Yeah,
I know. That's why I'm saying that could be, it could be that,
which
but
is stupid.
If we're basing it off of, there's a lot of those that kind of, how do you get from one name to the other with the whole nickname thing? But I don't know. I don't know if I would base this spirit's entire identity off of one piece of evidence. You could be talking to a whole different spirit. So I don't know, but they seem to be running with it. So maybe it's Jack, and maybe he's haunting this. But they also say that there's the sightings of a little boy, and he's seen wearing gray and white clothes, and he'll climb down the ladder in the cabin and then run off into the woods. And this is a common occurrence, I guess. Multiple people have seen this exact situation happening. So it's probably a residual haunting, I would assume. And I think this might have nothing to do with the battle. I think this could just be maybe whoever lived in that cabin. Maybe he saw the war happening outside of his house and was like, oh shit, I gotta go. And ran down the ladder, ran off in the woods. Maybe he got hit by a bullet when he was running off into the woods. And then this is just replaying over and over and over again, which is tragic and kind of scary to think about. But it could be the same little boy ghost. It could be a different one, but that's kind of an interesting haunting there. So not just one communication, but also seeing the apparition going through this act over and over again.
I think that's something that happens way too often. You hit on a really good point where one person hears or one medium goes in and gets one thing, and the entire identity of haunting gets kind of based around that. We saw that last week where they thought that the ghost of the little girl was Augusta. And if you just did a little bit of research, and not saying it couldn't have been at some point, but Augusta lived to be 70, 80 years old. And we found out that her other sister actually died at a young age. And the whole point was the girl said she died in the house at a young age. So we see this at so many places so often where you get one person saying something and then that just gets too ingrained in the lore without there being, a second or third person getting any sort of evidence to the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's a little silly to fully believe it one way or another, right? It could be either. You just gotta kind of, I think, remain open-minded about these things. If you have one communication that says it's Jack, we've done so many investigations where we end up with 43 names in one night. It's like, oh, I'm pretty sure I heard Sarah, I heard Elizabeth, I heard Jack, I heard Johnny. It's just okay. So if we were to run with just one of those, then what are all the other ones wrong? It's just kind of goofy.
Mm-hmm. True.
But we get your name a lot when we go to places. So, like, your name gets brought up so many times, and I generally think that they're saying your name more so than their own name.
What might be throwing it off a little bit though is when we haven't covered this yet. We did the investigation in Rockland. One of the ghosts that are believed to haunt the place is also named Jesse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there was that. I don't know. We've gotten a little bit of different ones. I think it was in Rockland where it kept saying Andrew over and over again. So
Yeah.
we haven't covered that yet.
Hinsdale was Andrew, wasn't it?
I don't remember. They all kind of blend together.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I think Hinsdale was Andrew, and then, anyways, we'll go over that when we cover it. But
yes,
that's that. So that, I mean, you have a couple of them. There are a couple little haunted buildings at the park. These buildings still stand. You also have the Rangers housing area, where I guess you're getting kind of your run-of-the-mill haunts with doors opening and closing, windows opening and closing on their own, and those kind of haunts there. I won't dive too much into that because that was kind of just your run-of-the-mill stuff. But it seems that there's just buildings all around this park that are haunted. And then you get your locations. You get the Bloody Pond, which this is kind of a cool haunting with like the water changing color. But this isn't the only haunting that happens at the pond. People also get these cold bursts of air on really hot days. And in the winter, it seems to do the opposite, where they'll get these bursts of heat on these colder days. And it just kind of doesn't really make sense. We get cold spots all the time in investigations. So that's interesting. I watched a long video where people were doing some spirit box stuff at the Bloody Pond, and they got some very interesting communications there. So it seems to be a pretty active spot. The water changing color does seem to have a scientific explanation with the heat-driven algae blooming in the warmer seasons. But I would be interested to see if, like, when those things are out of season, if it still changes color, and if that's not really something that's supposed to scientifically happen.
Yeah. Of all the places that we covered on this, I mean, that obviously is a draw, right? Like, just seeing a red pond, the Bloody Pond, great name as well. The history surrounding it, adds to the lore. It would be, the cabins are really cool. Love to investigate those. But set me up outside. Set me up by this pond, and let's try to get some activity. Let's not use any dowsing rods outside. That seems like a bad idea. We've seen that in the past.
Not on a windy day, right? Not on a windy day.
Not on a windy day. But let's get some other equipment out there, and let's see if we can pick up anything at the Bloody Pond.
Yes. So the final location that I covered here. Now, there's a lot more at this park, I'm going to dive into. I have a bunch of firsthand accounts, and we'll go through some of those and a little bit of people experiencing different kind of hauntings at different places. But the other location I talked about was Cherry Mansion. Now, this one isn't technically in Shiloh, a couple miles away, but this one has a lot to do with the battle, and it's also supposed to be a haunted building. And this one was, it's called Cherry Mansion because William Cherry ended up owning the house after David Robson passed away. It kind of got transferred over to him eventually, so they started calling it Cherry Mansion. And this was like the headquarters for the Union. So they were Cherry was a Union sympathizer, and to a point where Ulysses S. Grant and his staff, they were staying at that house and having their meetings at the house. They were actually having breakfast at the house during when the battle kicked off, and they heard the cannon fire in the distance. And I don't know why this is such an important part of the story, but in every single historical document that I read, they made it a point to mention that they left their breakfast half eaten. So, okay, cool. I mean, like if they sat there and finished their breakfast, I'd be like, that's irresponsible. But of course they didn't finish their breakfast, and they went off to the battle that they're supposed to be in charge of. So it's just an interesting detail that seems to be on every single document. But they went down there. There's like a river right close to the house. We included a picture of it. So they boarded a steamboat and headed off into battle. And then two of them got mortally wounded. It was General Smith and Wallace, and they were taken back to the house, and they died in the house. Now, this is kind of where eerie things started happening. You had Martha Ann, who was Wallace's wife, and I guess she had a premonition about her husband's death, and she was so worried about it that she actually made her way down to Tennessee to just make sure that he was okay. And when she got there, the battle was already raging on, and he came back mortally wounded, died in her arms in that house within the next couple of days. So her premonition was correct, which is pretty wild. Not the craziest of premonitions to come true, right? If you're going into a battle, like there's obviously a chance that people are going to die. So it's not like, if I had a premonition that Rob was going to get shot tomorrow and then it happened, probably by Dave.
What do you know?
Then that'd be more wild, where like maybe you end up in court for that, right? But this one is just kind of.
I might be working in Dorchester tomorrow, so this might happen.
The odds are higher there.
I am using this evidence against you if it happens.
Anyways, but so that was kind of the first, as far as I know, that was kind of the first sign of strange things happening in this house. And it seems that as years went on, more and more hauntings happened. Now, as far as I know, this house is privately owned, so it's not a place that you should go trespass to go see if you can find your own hauntings. But people walking by say that they see ghosts in the window, and they're usually wearing Union uniforms, which would make sense. And there's some other ones that people have claimed that they've seen bloody footsteps leading up to the door, which you would assume that if two guys were mortally wounded in battle, if they were able to walk up to the door of the house where they did end up dying at, there would be some bloody footprints, or they could be bleeding on the people that are carrying them, so, but for these things to show back up over time, we've seen that actually a few times where it's either like, blood stains will appear and disappear, bloody footprints, wet footprints. You've seen this in quite a few different hauntings. So it is kind of an interesting one. And that isn't it. In 1976, 4 young men claimed to witness a man in a linen suit, and he had a gray beard. He walked up to the historical marker on the grounds. Now they have a sign outside of the house kind of explaining it. I showed a picture of it. And it looked like he was just reading the sign, but then the guy just up and vanished before their eyes. So they're like, oh shit, that wasn't just a guy reading the sign with a gray beard in a linen suit. That man was a ghost. So that was...
Do you think it was a intelligent haunting and he was reading about stuff that he thought happened like just a couple hours ago or something, like he had just experienced, and seeing a marker already put up for it? Like that's got to be a weird experience if intelligent hauntings exist.
Yeah, imagine if like you didn't realize you were dead and you went and you read that marker and you're like, oh, I'm dead. And then that was it. And then you got crossed over. Yeah. Brennan says other people have seen the historical marker man too. In 1976, it just made the papers. So that's interesting. So it's not the first time he was seen. And they, I guess people keep seeing him. I've read a few of them where people were, I mean, you get them all over the place. I'll go into a couple of them, but there was another one where this guy who was being interviewed, he seemed like a completely normal guy. He still was maintaining that he wasn't a believer in ghosts. But one of the things that he saw what he thought was a reenactor down by one of the cannons at the battlefield. And then the man vanished before his eyes. And he's like, wow, so I must have just seen a ghost. I don't know if I believe in ghosts still. Like, all right.
Happens.
What did you see?
All the time people say that. Also, I'm just going to address the chat real quick. I still absolutely would catch a cannonball. Just throwing that out there. There's no way I wouldn't catch it.
Whether or not he survives after catching it is remains to be seen.
Have you seen these hands?
So I have quite a few of ghostly experiences that I can read if you guys want to go over a few of these. Some of these are pretty good. Some of these sound like they might have just made them up to get on the website, but we'll go over them regardless. So this one is coming from, I don't know what their name is actually, but it says, strange thing happened. I stopped by on my way to Ripley, Mississippi from Nashville in 2013. This was the first time I had been there. When coming in on Pittsburgh Landing Road, I stopped at the third pull-off to stretch my legs and have a smoke. While looking around, reading the plaques, I started to feel my leg burning. I looked to see if something had stung me, but there was nothing there. I reached in my pocket to check, but the only thing in it was my case pocket knife. When I pulled it out, it was so hot I could not hold it, and I dropped it on the ground. I picked it up and had to juggle it between my hands. After a few minutes, it was back to normal. I still think about this and wonder if it was something interested in my knife. I have been back without anything strange happening. That's an alarming, kind of strange, haunting experience. So basically, he was just stepped out to have a smoke, felt like something was burning his leg, and he pulled out his pocket knife. His pocket knife was like red hot to a point where he couldn't even hold it. He dropped it to the ground.
That is weird.
Just a very strange occurrance.
I don't know if
Trying to
I've
think
ever
of
heard anything like that.
The only logical explanation that I could come up with, and this isn't even that logical, is maybe he was having a tough time lighting his cigarette and that heated up the lighter. Then he put the lighter in his pocket. And maybe he felt that instead, but it wouldn't explain why the lighter was red hot when he pulled. I mean, the knife was red hot when he pulled it out. So I don't know.
I don't know. That is weird.
That's a very
Gotta be a
strange
ghost.
We were down by the Shiloh church. My wife went to go check out the church, and I was on the other side of the road looking through the woods at a soldier statue. I heard what sounded like gunshots. Paranormal? I don't know. I believe there are people who live in the area. Perhaps someone was shooting at a target, but it did make me curious. So this is one of the very common hauntings that people experience here, is just the sound of gunshots. So
Is there, so I mean, obviously there's like a wooded area around there, or is hunting allowed? Like those are the things I'd be looking into to see if there's an explanation for it.
right. Yeah, I would wonder that. I would doubt at a National Historic Park where people are doing tours daily and stuff that they would do hunting, but I can't rule it out. I don't know what the rules are in the area, or is it close enough to an area where you can hunt, where
Right.
you might hear those gunshots, but people do hear cannon shots and stuff. Brendan confirms, he says, Lord, no hunting allowed of any kind. So
Just
hearing gunshots
humans.
is just, whoa, why me? Who did that? Anyways.
My bad.
I mean, I always like a close up. I just like a little warning first. This one, it says, all right, this one gets 5 stars, but the title is not very intriguing. It says, wind out of nowhere came and blew a hat off.
That happens.
I was in the car with my family driving around, and they were talking about how the Confederates died for slaves. And I said, no, they did not. And then a wind came out of nowhere and blew their hats off. And I felt someone hug me. And
Okay.
It's happening.
And I said, you made them soldiers mad. And they did. But they liked me and heard, we love you. All right. How'd this one get 5 stars? I don't want to rule it out.
Well, I like that the implication is that like normally there's a warning. Like the earth taps you on the shoulder. There's gonna be some wind. It's coming. Like wind obviously comes out of nowhere.
right. Well, he was in his car. So that's a weird thing.
Oh.
The
Well,
whole family was
it
in
was
the
it
car.
was written so well that I had no idea what was
Right.
going
It took it. So the first time I had read this, I'm like, I'm not reading that on the show. That's stupid. But the second time around reading it, I realized that his whole family, they were driving in the car. And then the kids basically had, made a comment about Confederate soldiers. And the dad's like, that's not true. It's not necessarily true or whatever. And then all of the kids, their hats just blew off their heads.
Okay.
That's weird.
Well, that's different. I thought they were just like outside. And I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
of
In
course
the
they-
car is interesting.
Yeah, very different.
How powerful is your AC where the kids are talking shit? Be like, yeah, what do you think now?
Was it a convertible?
Yes,
Details are important.
it is. Yeah. This one's a bit of a longer one, but I will go ahead and read it. So I was there in April of 2023. I had been visiting relatives in Mississippi, so I went to Shiloh as a detour stop. As I was heading back there to Minnesota. It was late in the afternoon on a Sunday when I arrived, and the park was nearly empty. It had been a cloudy day. There had been There may have been rain earlier, but the sky was clearing and the sun was starting to peek through the clouds. I purchased a download audio tour that you can listen to on your cell phone. I had it playing through my Tahoe's Bluetooth speakers as I drove around to the different sites.
Sick brag, bro.
I know. I do have a Tahoe. It uses GPS to note your location and tells you important things that happened in the area. It was getting late, and I definitely don't want to be in this place after sundown. I stopped somewhere on the road in the park in front of an open field with cannons aligning on one side of the field. It was unique because most parts of the battlefield are covered in large forests now. Anyway, I was sitting in my SUV. It was a Tahoe.
A Tahoe.
Overlooking the field. The tour finished playing, and I noticed a slight fog developing in the field. It seemed to come up from the ground, and I assumed its formation was due to some moisture remaining in the grass and a change in atmospheric temperature as the sun went behind the tree lines and the monument shadows stretched out. However, as I watched the field, the fog grew thicker and thicker until I could not clearly see the opposing tree line. This didn't immediately concern me, but the fog started to twist and rotate as if something was stirring up. Then things got a little freaky. The audio tour unexpectedly started playing again, but this time there was no narration, only the sound of horses and men marching around the clanking. Sorry, my dog is snoring, so if you guys hear that, it adds to the atmosphere of this spooky story. I'll go back. This didn't immediately concern me, but the fog started to twist and rotate as if something was stirring it up. Then things got a little freaky. The audio tour unexpectedly started playing again, but this time there was no narration, only the sound of horses and men marching with clanking sounds and a horn in the background. The fog almost looked like it was separating, as if a ghastly army marched down the middle of the field. Since I don't take any drugs, I didn't know what to think of it and somehow thought I must have been hallucinating. I started up my vehicle and quickly drove.
Tahoe.
I started up my Tahoe, which was shining after the beautiful car wash, and quickly drove, following the park exit signs. I didn't look back. I never told anyone about it, but was researching the ghosts of Shiloh, and that brought me here. So there's my story.
I still have the Tahoe to this day.
Yes. That's an eerie one. And this is, I don't know if it was multiple people talking about this particular story, but I saw a couple people talking about the audio glitching on these tours. And I don't know, maybe it's just a problem with the audio tour, but that's a really creepy one. If it just like, it's not narrating and it's just playing the sounds of battle as this weird foggy thing is happening outside. That one's kind of a cool story.
I hope the narration was in a Hannibal Lecter voice. Like how much more creepy would that be?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking of that because you said GPS.
Yes. Yes. We did have we never had a Tahoe actually, but we did have
either of us.
The Hannibal Lecter GPS, which I do miss every day. Every day I miss it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Say it to myself. Turn left, driver.
Driver. Drop left, driver. So those are some of the hauntings at Shiloh. There's obviously a lot more. As I went through, there was so many different people recounting their ghostly stories. Too many to go over. But this is definitely one that there could be a part 2 on. There's plenty of things over here, and definitely a place I would like to visit. I do wish that is something that you could visit at night. But again, a lot of this stuff in this park is kind of stuff that you'd want to see in the day anyways. So
true. Very true.
Indeed. Anything else on Shiloh you guys want to talk about?
No, I mean, it just shows like the history of wars in general, specifically for us in America, the Civil War, just the remnants, the residual hauntings of such events is so prominent across the entire country that this wasn't the first Civil War one we covered. It definitely won't be the last one. And it's bleak. It's terrible. But it just kind of sticks with you every time you hear these stories.
Yeah, for sure.
Still the bloodiest war ever fought on U.S. soil. So it's definitely lingers.
Yeah, it really does. So That is Shiloh National Military Park, brought to you by Brennan B. And man, yeah, I am jealous that when you guys went down to Gettysburg, I wasn't able to join because I was late as usual. So
Per usual.
next time. But I do want to visit more of these battlefields. I love the way that they preserve these with all the cannons, and they have the museums there as well, and just the artifacts and everything from those wars and everything. It's just it's pretty cool the way they do this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Do we want to jump into some 5-star reviews?
Let's do it.
All right, first one is from Kitten Clowndozer, who's in chat tonight, titled Hauntingly Funny. Not the same old boring paranormal podcast. Dark New England humor with Boston banter makes this podcast stand out amongst the paranormal podcasts. Julie Gooley left one as well, titled Great Show. I love this show. I am caught up on all the episodes. Keep the shows coming, guys. We are trying our very best. We're trying so hard. This one is from Tyler, titled Best Ghost Podcast. I've been listening to HDGS since they appeared on Chris Jericho's podcast, and it took me months to catch up. I never miss an episode, and great for when traveling for work. Love you guys. Thank you for the great stories, and hope you guys are around for years to come. So glad you found us on the Jericho podcast. We always love doing that particular show. I do have one more thing I want to read. It's not technically a review, but somebody sent something in to us actually just before the show started. This is from Shane O'Mac, and he wrote, "Hey guys, Ghost Pirate Mafia member here. I wanted to let you know Bobby Mackey's Music World in Wilder, Kentucky, near Cincinnati, was torn down today. I drove by it, and it was kind of sad to see it on the ground. I never saw anything, but I fixed some refrigeration units in that basement a few years ago. Just thought I would tell you." And I am sad. That is a place that I wanted to go. There is a lot of controversy with the history there and stuff. Maybe we'll do an episode on it sometime, but definitely one of the places that I would have loved to have gotten to before they tore it down.
Yeah, that sucks. I saw that it was going to happen. It was kind of one of those things I was hoping that they would keep delaying, and then deciding to keep it. I'm surprised it wasn't enough. The building must, it looked like it was in rough shape, but it must have been at a point where there was no saving it. Because even a lot of these buildings, like, they can go out of business and then just stay open for ghost tours and stuff. And that place has a big enough name where I think that they could have survived exclusively off of paranormal investigations and tours and stuff. But if it's not safe, it's not safe, and there's nothing you can really do about that. So
yeah, they are rebuilding, I believe. At least that was the plans at one point. I believe they still are the plans. So maybe the new building will still have some energy attached to it. We've seen that in the past as well.
I just pulled it up. It says, yes, Bobby Mackey's is being rebuilt after the original building is demolished.
Okay. Well, I wonder if it'll still be as haunted. Sometimes it gets more haunted when things like that happen. So you never really know.
Yes.
Blow Me Shadow updates us that the Conjuring House is closed. Wonder why.
No, and it's not. It should be, but it's not.
Secret operations.
Yeah.
Anyways, any other reviews, or is that it for now?
That's it for now. Let's
hop into our patrons real quick.
Hells yeah.
Nice. Starting off with our VIPs, we have Justin W, J Gooch 725, Jackie F, Jeremy M, Casey W, Brandina 77, Kathy F, Kitten Clown Dozer, Ghost Nurse JP, Another Vice. Dave has a new kangaroo onesie with a bottom flap. TJ B, Tess, Mother McTibbles and her show reference fish, Captain McTibbles. Jesse is the most handsome, strong, and brave. Kate and Steve M.
When
Sharon.
are they changing that? Like, that's been too long.
The thing is, I have to change that for them to change that, right? And I can't stop being so damn handsome, strong, and brave. It's very difficult. So I'm sorry. I don't make the rules. Sharon V, Glitter Tease Cammy from Washington, Kelly C, Jennifer P, Kate and Steve M, if I didn't mention them already. I just don't want to skip anybody. Nick, Liz Young. Rob's favorite Christmas decorations are mistletoes.
Oh my God.
A little Christmassy one there from Donnie. Thank you, Donnie. Inspires Gaming. We have Allison V, Robert H, Anna C, Jeannie, Mallory from Montana, Mom and Pops W, Papa Squatch, Lisa J, and Mike Oubliette Blake.
Oubliette.
Thank you so much for being VIPs. If you want to be in the VIPs, then go ahead and join the VIPs. We have
you sold
that pitch. That's
they're
a pretty good
sold.
pitch.
There. I
Double.
actually just got 30 new emails right now because
Look
of
at
that bitch.
All right. Up to the Warrens' wards, we have the mass hole medic, degenerate gambler, voodoo ghost who shouldn't have hit on 19, Jamie E, Jennifer A, Nick M, T-Cat, Jeremy M. Did I just read a Jeremy M? Did I do that twice? I don't know. But hey, Jeremy M, Beth C, Serena, Shawners, Leslie F, Rachel G, Her Lady Spookship, Slosh and Oshkosh, Julie Gooley, Eugene M, Arcade Hunters, The Bottom of Colby's Bottle, Calf Q, DC, Chris Connolly, LBPS founder, Next, HGGS guest, The Other Rachel B, Sarah Cook, Janice G, Vampire Sandpaper on Rob's Toes.
Come on.
Sydney got bit by a goose while in her car on Saturday. How do you get bit by a goose while you're inside the car?
Why was there a goose in the car?
Why was
So
there
many questions.
a violent goose?
Yeah, why are you near a violent goose? Were you in a Tahoe?
I believe gooses are inherently violent.
I believe goose
Geese,
is pronounced
some would
geese.
say.
We have ghost
Some would say.
obsessions. Ghost obsessions don't make you delusional, Steph A. That's right. Seth on guitar and human soup. Thank you so much for being part of the Warrens Wards. Next up is the Ghost Pirate Mafia. If ghost obsessions did make you delusional, that might explain us. A couple of delusional guys. All right, moving on. Ghost Pirate Mafia. We have Susan C, Just Ghoulie, Witchy Kitty 416, Deb 62, Karen L, Michael M, Tanya C. If Rob doesn't take me to see Wicked, he's lost all access to his ranch covered beanie weenies. P.S. He loves movie theater hut. I'm assuming that got cut off. You have found the
character limit.
But we can all guess what that hut would be. Rob loves movie theater hot Pepsi.
Probably.
Yeah.
Right, figure it out.
We know that that's what they serve at movie theaters. Is famous for their hot Pepsi.
Classic hot Pepsi. Carrie H, Amber R. Have you guys ever accidentally drank like a bottle of like above room, like actual like warm to hot soda?
Yeah, it's so much fizzier. It's horrible.
It hurts. It is painful.
Yeah,
As a kid, you know, when you just like, you'll drink soda at any temperature because you just got your hands on a can of soda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've taken a sip of hot soda before. It's a painful experience. Anyways,
Amber, I don't drink soda anymore. I only drink soda at the movie theater, and that's because you get those remix machines, and the Mr. Pibb strawberry is like the goated soda, and that's the only time I drink soda.
Yeah, I made fun of you
soda
for
water.
and then I had some because I was like, you know what, let me try it out. And actually, it was pretty delicious. I do pretty much only drink soda if I'm at the movie theater.
Yeah,
and if I do, it's hot Pepsi. Where were we? Carrie H, Amber R, Brant C, Whisper, Shane J, Mrs. Nardozzi, Shano Mac, Joe Shay, Trevor S, Amanda H, Christina S, Kate C, Kelly C, bloop, bloop. Crazy Legs. The Cowboys are 5-8 tanking season. Just call me Bree, Miss McCarb, Michelle, Naroku, Cold Warrior, the triumphant return of Youngstown Pizza. Welcome back.
God damn it.
Oh, Meta A changed it. I don't know how to say this.
So like a NPC in like one of the games where they don't act like The Sims or something. Just
this is a weird one. So in their alphabet, they have a letter that has like an A and an E combined. Anyways, it's Gledlik Jul Meta A.
American.
Nailed it. Crushed it again. Sarah B, Monster Mom 04, Wicked Alley, Dark Snark. Rob ate soup with a cheer, but spilt it all over his ear. He ate with delight, squirted sauce all night, said, I like it messy, my dear. That was a beautiful poem.
We have a goose update. Stephanie,
Okay.
Goose update.
said, we went to a drive-through Christmas light display. They had geese, and Sydney, Sydney wanted to stick her hand out the car to pet the cute goosey, and it bit the hell out of her hand.
Geese, in my experience, are not friendly.
Yeah, not friends.
They're always pissed off. Yep.
Yeah.
We're hoping for a
Especially-
speedy recovery for Sydney and her goose wound.
Yes.
hand.
Yes. Goose wound. Megan S. Morgan S. 6 slippery snails slid silently southward. Nice. Got it. Wayne C. Galena or Watsika. There's no way I said either of those correctly. Illinois, statistically easier, Jesse.
Glad the one that you got right was the tongue twister. That's the one thing that you've read properly the entire time.
Perfect. Crystal Quinn, aka Not a Rob fan. Thick Boy Freddy's baby mama has not been yeeted. Alicia E. Thick Boy Freddy versus the ever most insidious, unscrupulous, and most unsavory fellow. Hey Siri, what's a night fister? Hey, don't talk about my album like that.
Tricked you right there.
Swanee, I am here from the Nuclear Physicists Association. We would like to invite Jesse. Please provide his credentials. My credentials is my episode on Chernobyl and only my episode on Chernobyl. Sam from the Ball, Joe R, Al Capone, Huggy Bear. You done good, Jesse. You done good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Solar Flare, Mariah M, Kira Lee J, Anthony. This week's cage match is Rob versus a fishing toe soup monster T. All right, I'm excited to see that one. Cody G, Brandon W, Hoopley, Whooply, Bridge Witch, and the Polka guys. Boom, we got through it. So That is our Patreon list. If you want to be on Patreon, consider joining up. You get early access to episodes, ad-free episodes as well. If you don't like hearing ads in the show, then just go ahead and jump on Patreon. You get an ad-free episode every single week. It's
discount codes to the merch store. So many things for being a Patreon member.
All sorts of goodies. If you can't support the show financially, that's perfectly okay. Think about dropping us a 5-star review. If you've already done that, then find a friend and tell them to drop a 5-star review, all about how you force them to listen to the show and drop a 5-star review. And that would be entertaining. A new wave of 5-star reviews that could be very funny.
And if you do drop a 5-star review, we're doing giveaways for them. So make sure you drop your 5-star review, share it in Discord, or shoot us an email with a screenshot of your 5-star review titled 5-star review, I guess. You don't have to be original. Makes my life easier if you don't be on the subject line.
Hell yeah. And join the Discord. Anyways, that will pretty much do it, I think, right?
Yes.
Night Fist Speedwalk in stores now. I'll play this outro video one more time, and we'll see.
There's stores?
That's what they say, right? I don't know. It's on your favorite streaming service. You could buy it from the iTunes store, so I guess that would be...
All right, fair.
Yeah. I didn't print copies and send them out to Strawberries or what was the other one? Yeah.
FYE Strawberries.
FYE, right?
Sam Goody.
Yeah.
Sam
if you
Goody
can find one of those, maybe the album will be there. But
go buy Jesse's new album at your local grocery store.
Anyways, that'll do it. We'll catch you guys next week for another episode of Hometown Ghost Stories. Appreciate you guys. Bye.
Peace.